Hi, thanks so much for joining us today. We have put this video together specifically for the UWC International Food Festival. This training is designed to include and accommodate children who have medical dietary restrictions. We will be talking about gluten, dairy, and egg. This training is not going to be focusing on children with anaphylactic nut allergies. Those children are also very important, but there are differences between the two types of allergies in the way ingredients are chosen and how food is prepared. I've always been so impressed with the variety of food that UWC parents provide for the International Food Festival. Over the years, I've noticed that each country typically has at least one food that does not contain gluten, dairy, or egg. But there are two common problems for children with food allergies. The first one is that it's difficult for the students to know for sure exactly what the ingredients are. And the second problem is that the food can get contaminated with crumbs from other foods. This contamination can easily happen during the preparation or sitting on the table or during the serving. There are two steps that we can take to help accommodate as many students as possible. We can carefully choose and document our ingredients, and we can very carefully prepare, store, and serve the food. We are not asking you to prepare everything gluten, dairy, and egg-free. What we're asking is that you just make one thing and set it aside for children with food allergies. If you can make something that eliminates all three allergens, that's great. And if you can't, no problem. If you can try to make at least one thing that eliminates one or two of them, that is also very helpful in accommodating them. Realistically, there are some food allergies that we cannot safely provide for, but we can try our best to accommodate for as many as possible. In this training, I will be going over the basic steps for how to choose ingredients and also the basic steps for how to safely prepare and serve the food. We will focus on gluten-free preparation because that is the more difficult out of all three. But once you understand the steps for that, the protocol for the others is exactly the same. Gluten is a protein that is found in wheat, rye, and barley. Anything it contains or has touched wheat, rye, or barley contains gluten. Wheat is probably the most familiar of these ingredients. It is the primary ingredient in baked goods, bread, naan, cookies, cakes, and many other common foods. Barley is the second most common and often shows up in the form of malt. Dairy is the milk that comes from an animal, particularly a cow. Products that contain dairy include butter, ghee, cream, evaporated and condensed milk, casein, whey, yogurt, and so many more. Eggs are eggs. That's exactly what we mean. Eggs, both white and yolk, would be included in this. In our printed instructions, we've included a list of words that indicate gluten, dairy, and egg. For example, if you see the word malt or flour or soy sauce on an ingredient label, you can assume that that product contains gluten. Likewise, if you see the words milk or butter or ghee on an ingredient label, you can assume that that product contains dairy. There are lots and lots of words for these things, so make sure you take a look at the list before you get started. Okay, let's go over the steps for creating a few allergen-free options for the food festival. The first step is to choose your recipe carefully. If possible, choose one that does not contain the allergens that you need to eliminate. The next best choice is to choose a recipe that where the ingredient that you need to eliminate can be easily substituted by something safe. Here are a few recipes that we can use as examples. Chicken satay. So the ingredients in this would be generally fine for anyone who is gluten-free, dairy-free, and egg-free. Of course, this contains peanuts, so it is something we wouldn't use for the International Food Fair anyway, but this is all just single ingredients mixed together. Beef rendang. The ingredient list for beef rendang is also very good for people who are gluten-free, dairy-free, and egg-free. All the ingredients are single ingredients and would be fine. Okay, potato balls. Potatoes, egg white, salt, and oil for frying. and chili sauce and ketchup for dipping. So this would be fine for somebody who is gluten-free and someone who is dairy-free, but obviously not okay for anyone with an egg allergy. And you would want to make sure that the oil that you deep fry this in has not been used for any other food previously. The dipping sauces, the chili sauce and ketchup, those are ingredients that you would need to check the packaging. Fresh spring rolls. This is also another great option for anyone who is eliminating gluten, dairy, or eggs. Rice vermicelli is gluten-free. Fish sauce is not the same as soy sauce, and fish sauce is also gluten-free. There is no dairy or egg in this at all. So long as this recipe was made and there was no chance of contamination from other food, then this would be fine. Next, double check all of your ingredients. Single ingredients are simply that. Those are just a single ingredient. For example, an egg is just an egg. A banana is just a banana. But something like soy sauce, for example, is a combination of several different ingredients to make the soy sauce. Soy sauce is one of the biggest things that gets confusing in gluten-free cooking because soy sauce does in fact contain gluten because it contains wheat. If you are using any ingredients that have come in contact with the ingredient that you are eliminating, you need to use a brand new package. The best example for this is butter. So for example, if you cut butter with a knife and then spread it onto wheat bread and then put the knife back into the butter to cut more, you are also putting wheat crumbs into the butter. Thus, the butter is not gluten-free anymore. So if you are cooking for anyone who's gluten-free, make sure you're using a new package or something that could not be contaminated with crumbs from somebody else. If you have ingredients that you're using, say, that come in squeeze bottles, those are generally considered fine. So for example, ketchup from a squeeze bottle or mayonnaise from a squeeze bottle would not be contaminated with any other foods. Next, it's really important to document your ingredients. Save the packaging or take a photo of both the front and the back, including the ingredient list of the package. This information is really helpful later on for reference, and we will talk more about that at the end of this training. Okay, moving on. Before you start cooking anything, clean your kitchen. Clean the sink, the countertops, and any and all utensils and bowls that you're going to be using for cooking. You need to clean everything with soap and water. Soap is the one great way to get rid of any allergens. Sanitizers do not make a difference when it comes to food allergens. If you have a dishwasher, this is a great time to use it. Run everything that you're going to be using, all of the utensils and all of the bakeware, all of the bowls, through a cycle in the dishwasher, and they will be completely allergen-free. If you don't have a dishwasher, don't worry about it. Good dish soap and a clean sponge will clean up everything. So you might be wondering, how well do you need to clean? Well, a lot of it might depend on what you've recently cooked in your kitchen. So for example, if you are making something for a child who is gluten-free, but you have recently used wheat flour in your kitchen, you're going to need to clean extra well because wheat flour for sure has a way of getting all over things. If you are cooking for a child who is dairy-free, but you've recently cooked a lot of things using butter, then for sure, clean really well before you get started. If you are worried about your countertops or your baking sheets or things you can't put through the dishwasher, parchment paper makes an excellent barrier. You can use a sheet of parchment paper on your countertop or on any baking pan to make sure that any residue from previous baking does not come into contact with what you're doing today. All right, prepare your allergen food first and alone. This is not a good time to prepare several things at once. For example, if you're baking gluten-free cookies, do that and just do that alone. Do not also make regular cookies at the same time. And pay attention to what you're doing. You might be waiting for something to cook, but make sure that in the meantime, you do not touch the allergen you are eliminating. So for example, let's say you're baking gluten-free cookies. While they're baking in the oven, Don't be eating a sandwich, a regular wheat sandwich with your hands, because you could easily contaminate now the cookies that you've just baked. Do everything separately from start to finish. Store the finished food in an airtight container with a lid. This is very important because you want to make sure that anywhere along the way there's no possibility of it getting contaminated with other people's food. Tupperware containers with a lid are great for this. Label the container very clearly with what allergen it eliminates, and also include the ingredients with it. So back to our saving of the ingredient labels or taking photographs of them. Now you're going to need to use them. Here is an example of a really good ingredient packet. In a folder, make sure you have all the ingredient packaging or a photograph of the back and the front printed out in the folder. This is an excellent reference, and if anyone has any questions about what you've used or any other food allergy questions, you will be able to show them exactly what you've used. And you don't have to take the time to write down every single one on a piece of paper. Just save the original packaging or take a photograph of it. At the festival, serve the students directly from the container using dedicated utensils. This is very important. You can't use the tongs that you've used to pick up the regular cookies and then use the same tongs to pick up the gluten-free cookies, because you would be adding gluten crumbs to the gluten-free cookies. Whenever possible, this is a good time to wrap things in cling wrap or saran wrap. I know that we are aiming for less waste, but sometimes a little bit of cling wrap really protects the kids with food allergies. In between serving children with food allergies, make sure the lid goes back onto the container and the tongs that you're using for that food get put away in a safe place. You can put them in a bowl, you can put them into a Ziploc bag, just to make sure that they do not touch any other foods. Thank you so much for taking the time to include and accommodate kids with specific dietary restrictions. It is so important that they are included in school events. Below this video, I have included a link to the training packet. I have also included additional links for further information that you might find useful. If you have any questions, you may leave your comment below the video, or you may email me. My email is also listed in the information below the video. Again, thank you so much.